From the moment we glance at a dollar bill, gaze upon the apex of a pyramid, or witness a stylized eye in a film or painting, there's a symbol that seems to follow us, silently observing. The eye in the pyramid, sometimes called the All-Seeing Eye, has become one of the most recognizable yet enigmatic images in the world. Its presence is ubiquitous, but its meaning remains shrouded in mystery. On the surface, it might appear as nothing more than a decorative element, a flourish of artistic design. But those who study symbols, history, and secret traditions have long suspected that this eye is not merely ornamental. It is a beacon, a signpost, and perhaps even a key to knowledge humanity has largely forgotten. The first question that strikes the curious mind is simple. Why does this symbol appear in so many places, in so many cultures, spanning millennia? From ancient Egypt to the corridors of modern finance, from secret societies to the most popular media, the eye in the pyramid appears to watch, to signal, and to communicate. On the American dollar, the image rests atop an unfinished pyramid, as though the builders intended for its meaning to extend beyond mere currency. It stirs unease in some, fascination in others, and a quiet, nagging curiosity in nearly everyone who notices it. But to understand why the eye has such a magnetic pull on human imagination, we must first look beyond the surface. In Egyptian mythology, the eye was a powerful symbol of protection, power, and spiritual awareness. The Eye of Horus, one of the oldest known examples of the symbol, was not just an artistic motif, but a representation of divine vision, a tool for safeguarding kings and citizens alike. It was believed to restore wholeness, ward off evil, and convey the watchful presence of gods. Ancient scribes etched the symbol into walls, tombs, and artifacts, believing in its protective properties and its role as a bridge between the mortal and the divine. But the Egyptian use of the eye, while spiritually charged, is only one layer of a much larger puzzle. The eye's journey through history is as fascinating as it is perplexing. Across the ancient world, eyes were powerful markers of knowledge, vigilance, and hidden truth. In Mesopotamia, gods were often depicted with keen, observant eyes, surveying humanity and meting out justice. In some mystical traditions, the eye symbolized enlightenment, the opening of inner vision that allowed certain initiates to perceive truths hidden from ordinary sight. The motif reappears in cultures separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time, suggesting a shared fascination, perhaps even a collective memory, encoded in human consciousness. Yet the eye in the pyramid as we know it today is different from the purely spiritual eyes of ancient temples. It carries a dual nature. It is both protective and controlling, sacred and political, mystical and practical. On the Great Seal of the United States, designed in the late 18th century, the eye hovers above an unfinished pyramid. The pyramid itself, a geometric marvel, has long been associated with endurance, stability, and a connection between the earthly and the divine. But why would a nation founded on Enlightenment principles adopt such a mystical image? Was it simply aesthetic, or was there a deliberate effort to encode hidden knowledge into one of the world's most prominent symbols? Historians, scholars, and conspiracy theorists alike have pondered this question for centuries. Some argue that the symbol represents divine providence, the watchful guidance of a higher power over the fledgling nation. Others claim that it reflects the influence of secret societies, like the Freemasons, who are said to have played a role in shaping the symbols, rituals, and architecture of early America. The more we examine it, the more it becomes clear that the eye is not a simple mark. It is a coded message, a signal intended for those who are prepared to see beyond the surface. What makes the eye so compelling, however, is its ability to transcend time and culture. It evokes an immediate, almost primal response. There is something unsettling about being watched, yet there is also a strange comfort in the notion that a higher consciousness is overseeing events. Artists, architects, and secret orders have leveraged this duality for centuries. The eye serves as a reminder of limits, a tool of warning, and a beacon of enlightenment. Its power lies not only in its form, but in the ideas it conveys, silently influencing perception and consciousness. Even today, the eye persists in ways that go unnoticed by most. Its imprint on culture is subtle yet pervasive. Films, literature, and digital media frequently include eye symbolism, often associated with surveillance, knowledge, or hidden agendas. In a world dominated by cameras, algorithms, and the constant collection of data, the ancient symbolism of the eye has found an uncanny resonance with modern anxieties. Is it coincidence, or is there a deeper continuity connecting these ancient ideals with the digital age? The question is unsettling, and it forms the perfect opening for a journey into a web of history, secrecy, and hidden meanings. The eye in the pyramid challenges our assumptions about history, power, and human awareness. It is a gateway into a world where symbols carry weight beyond what the untrained eye can perceive. From sacred temples to currency, from secret society rituals to popular media, the eye weaves a narrative that suggests humanity has always been guided, observed, and perhaps influenced by forces beyond common understanding. It beckons the curious, the skeptical, and the daring to uncover the layers of meaning encoded within its form. In the sections that follow, we will trace the eye's lineage through the annals of history, examining its role in civilizations long past and its hidden connections to modern institutions. We will confront the tension between what is publicly known and what has been deliberately concealed, and we will uncover the whispers of secret knowledge, the enigmatic messages left by those who understood the power of the eye. By the end of this journey, you may begin to see that the eye in the pyramid is more than a symbol. It is a story, a warning, and perhaps a revelation, waiting for those brave enough to truly see. Long before the eye in the pyramid adorned currency, monuments, or secret society regalia, the symbol of the eye had already established a profound presence across human civilization. Eyes have fascinated humanity for millennia, not just as organs of vision, but as metaphors for perception, awareness, and the divine. Across cultures, the eye has been depicted as a conduit between the mortal and the eternal, a lens through which hidden truths are revealed and safeguarded. In ancient Egypt, the eye became a powerful talisman of protection and insight. The Eye of Horus, also known as the Wedjat, was one of the most revered symbols in Egyptian culture. According to mythology, Horus, the sky god, lost his left eye during a cosmic battle with Set, the god of chaos. The eye was later restored, symbolizing the triumph of order over disorder, of wholeness over destruction. The Wedjat was more than an artistic flourish. It was believed to carry magical properties, protecting pharaohs in life and death, guarding tombs, and ensuring the safe passage of the soul into the afterlife. Its use on amulets, temple walls, and sacred artifacts signaled that those who bore it were watched over and blessed, but also that unseen forces could see all deeds, both righteous and sinful. Yet Egypt was not alone in elevating the eye to divine status. In Mesopotamia, the earliest known civilizations also recognized the power of vision as a spiritual tool. Gods were often depicted with piercing, all-seeing eyes, surveying the actions of humans and enforcing cosmic justice. Temples and ziggurats featured carved eyes, intended to remind mortals that nothing escapes the notice of higher powers. In these societies, the eye was a symbol of omniscience, divine vigilance, and moral accountability, a motif that resonates eerily with the modern depiction of the eye in the pyramid, suggesting that the concept of all-seeing authority may be an archetype as old as civilization itself. Even in Eastern traditions, eyes carried profound symbolic weight. In Hinduism, the third eye of Shiva represents inner vision and spiritual awakening, a portal to higher knowledge. In Buddhist art, the eyes of the Buddha are often depicted on stupas, representing wisdom, compassion, and enlightenment. These motifs emphasize that the eye is not merely a physical organ. It is a gateway to perception beyond the ordinary, a link between the tangible world and the unseen dimensions of consciousness. Across continents and eras, the eye becomes a universal metaphor for insight, protection, and transcendence. What makes the eye in history so captivating is its consistency across disparate cultures. Across thousands of years, in civilizations separated by oceans and time, the motif of the eye appears, often linked to protection, divine favor, or hidden knowledge. Could this be mere coincidence, or does it point to a shared understanding, a universal recognition of the eye as a symbol of ultimate awareness? Some scholars suggest that such repetition is evidence of a hidden, transgenerational knowledge, wisdom passed through symbolic imagery rather than written text, encrypted in forms humans instinctively recognize. The Egyptians themselves may have recognized the dual power of the eye. It could protect, but could also observe, judge, and influence. Temples were constructed with precise alignments. Hieroglyphs were meticulously encoded, and sacred geometry governed the placement of symbols. The Eye of Horus was sometimes associated with the moon and sun, tying the motif to cosmic cycles and the very fabric of time. Through these ancient civilizations, we see the beginnings of a narrative in which the eye is not just an emblem. It is a tool of connection between humanity and the forces that govern existence. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect is the continuity that seems to echo into the present. The symbolic use of the eye in ancient cultures is not an isolated phenomenon. It is a thread in a much larger tapestry that leads directly to the eye in the pyramid. Some researchers propose that secret societies, mystics, and esoteric thinkers drew inspiration from these ancient motifs, preserving knowledge through symbols rather than text that could be lost or destroyed. By embedding meaning in the eye, they ensured that the message would endure, visible yet cryptic, accessible only to those willing to see beyond the obvious. Even in the material culture of ancient civilizations, the eye was more than symbolic, it was practical. Eyes painted on the bows of ships were thought to ward off danger and guide sailors safely, while eyes carved into statues of rulers were believed to imbue them with vigilance and authority. The motif transcended art. It became a functional aspect of ritual, magic, and governance. In this sense, the eye served as both a spiritual tool and a subtle mechanism of control, a reminder that unseen forces could observe and influence human behavior. The eye's ancient journey teaches us that symbols are never static. They evolve, adapt, and persist across time, carrying with them layers of meaning that can be interpreted in multiple ways. The eyes of the Egyptians, Mesopotamians, and Hindus did more than decorate temples or artifacts. They encoded principles of awareness, vigilance, and hidden knowledge. These principles would later echo in the all-seeing eyes of secret societies, the imagery of modern nations, and the iconography of popular culture. In other words, the eye in the pyramid is not a novel invention. It is the culmination of millennia of symbolic evolution, a bridge between the ancient and the modern, the sacred and the secular, the visible and the hidden. As we move forward in our journey, tracing the eye from ancient civilizations to modern symbols of power, we begin to recognize a pattern, a story that unfolds in layers, each more intricate than the last. The eye is not just a motif or decoration. It is a message, a warning, and perhaps a key. And just as the ancient artisans and mystics encoded wisdom into this enduring symbol, so too might the eye in the pyramid carry a secret waiting to be unlocked, a hidden truth that has persisted through centuries, patiently observing, silently guiding, and ever watchful. The eye is mysterious enough on its own, but its placement atop a pyramid transforms it into something far more enigmatic. Why a pyramid? Why this particular shape? Out of all the symbols humanity could have chosen to represent eternity, vigilance, or secret power, why was the pyramid selected as the foundation for the all-seeing eye? To unravel this question, we must journey back to the sands of Egypt, the land of monumental stone, sacred geometry, and cosmic alignment. The pyramids of Giza are perhaps the most enduring icons of ancient civilization. Rising from the desert like colossal sentinels, they have stood for over 4,000 years, their very existence challenging our understanding of human capability. Built with uncanny precision, aligned perfectly with the cardinal directions, and seemingly encoded with astronomical knowledge, the pyramids have long invited speculation about their true purpose. To the mainstream historian, they were tombs, massive, enduring memorials to pharaohs. But to alternative researchers, mystics, and seekers of hidden truths, the pyramids were something far more profound. Repositories of knowledge, initiatory temples, even energy machines that interacted with the cosmos. And here lies the curious overlap. The pyramid and the eye, united in a single image, seem to suggest that this ancient architecture was not only meant to be seen, but to see. The unfinished pyramid beneath the hovering eye on the Great Seal of the United States conveys a dual message. Humanity's work is incomplete, and something greater, represented by the eye, oversees and directs the effort. But this is not a motif born in 18th century America. It is a symbol whose roots dig deep into the ancient world. The geometry of the pyramid itself holds profound symbolic meaning. A pyramid is a structure that rises from a broad base and narrows to a single point. This progression mirrors the spiritual journey, from the material and chaotic to the refined and transcendent. In esoteric traditions, the pyramid represents ascension, the convergence of the many into the one, the unification of diversity into divine unity. The eye, when placed at the apex, becomes the final stage of this journey. The illumination, the opening of perception, the revelation of truth. It is as though the pyramid is the ladder, and the eye is the prize awaiting those who climb to the summit. But there are deeper mysteries hidden in the very measurements of the Great Pyramid. Researchers have long noted that the dimensions of the Great Pyramid encode astonishing mathematical relationships. The ratio of its perimeter to its height approximates the value of pi, while its slope seems to encode the golden ratio, phi, the number associated with beauty, harmony, and growth in nature. The pyramid is not a haphazard pile of stone, but a structure infused with cosmic mathematics, a monument that seems to whisper in numbers the secrets of the universe. And if the pyramid is a coded text, then the eye may represent the one who can read it, the enlightened observer, the initiate who sees the hidden order behind the veil of chaos. Consider also the pyramid's celestial alignments. The shafts within the Great Pyramid are not random architectural features. They point directly to specific stars, such as Orion's belt and Sirius, which held deep religious and mythological significance for the Egyptians. Orion was associated with Osiris, the god of resurrection and eternal life, while Sirius was linked to Isis, the goddess of magic and restoration. By aligning the pyramid with the heavens, the builders were encoding a cosmic story in stone, a narrative of life, death, and rebirth. In this sense, the pyramid itself becomes a bridge between earth and sky, mortality and divinity. And the eye, gazing out from the apex, symbolizes the ultimate awareness that comes when one understands its cosmic connection. The relationship between the pyramid and the eye was not confined to Egypt. Across the globe, pyramid-like structures emerged in Mesoamerica, Asia, and even Europe. The Mayans and Aztecs built step pyramids that served as temples of initiation, places where ritual sacrifice and celestial observation intertwined. In China, the so-called pyramids of Xi'an mirror astronomical constellations, while in Mesopotamia, the ziggurat functioned as a cosmic mountain, a meeting point between gods and men. Though separated by oceans and cultures, these civilizations all gravitated toward the pyramid form, suggesting a shared, perhaps universal, understanding of its power. And yet, across all these traditions, the pyramid was not only a structure, it was a symbol of connection, ascension, and the eye that perceives beyond ordinary limits. The combination of the eye and the pyramid, then, may be more than just coincidence. To the esoteric thinker, it represents the union of architecture and consciousness, matter and spirit, geometry and vision. The pyramid is the body, the eye is the soul. The pyramid is the foundation, The eye is the enlightenment. Together, they form a symbol that communicates a truth deeper than words, that the path to knowledge requires both structure and insight, discipline and awakening. When the founding fathers of the United States adopted the eye and the pyramid for the Great Seal, they may have been drawing directly upon this tradition. Several of them were Freemasons, initiates in a society that revered ancient architecture, geometry, and symbolism. In Masonic lore, the unfinished pyramid represents the work of humanity, still in progress, while the eye represents the great architect of the universe, the divine overseer guiding human effort. To place the eye above the pyramid is to acknowledge both the human striving toward perfection and the divine assistance that makes such striving possible. It is a symbol at once humble and exalting, reminding us that no matter how high we build, there is always a higher order observing, guiding, and judging. But there is another, more unsettling interpretation. If the eye above the pyramid represents surveillance, control, and oversight, then the pyramid beneath it represents humanity itself, the masses toiling to build a structure that remains forever incomplete. In this view, the eye is not the benevolent guide, but the overseer, the master who directs the pyramid's construction while keeping its knowledge hidden from those who labor below. This duality, illumination versus control, guidance versus domination, lies at the heart of the symbol's mystery. And so, the pyramid is not just a backdrop for the eye. It is a partner in the symbol, a vessel carrying the weight of millennia of human aspiration, geometry, and spiritual longing. Together, the eye and the pyramid form a cipher that has traveled from the sands of Giza to the modern dollar bill, from initiation chambers of the ancients to the digital age of surveillance and control. To understand one, we must understand the other. And as we peel back the layers of history, we begin to see that the pyramid may not only support the eye, it may reveal what the eye has been watching all along. The eye in the pyramid may have its roots in the sands of Egypt, but its journey into the modern age owes much to the hidden networks of secret societies. These groups, sometimes scholarly, sometimes political, sometimes spiritual, have guarded symbols and rituals for centuries, cloaking themselves in mystery while leaving behind tantalizing clues in architecture, writings, and iconography. Among their most enduring emblems is the eye, an ever-watchful presence that speaks of hidden truths, divine oversight, and to some, veiled control. 2. Understand why secret societies embrace the eye, we must first appreciate the nature of these organizations. In times when knowledge was dangerous, when questioning the authority of the church or crown could mean imprisonment or death, esoteric wisdom was often hidden in coded texts, geometric patterns, and symbolic rituals. Symbols became the language of secrecy, tools by which knowledge could be transmitted safely from one initiate to another. The eye was one of the most potent of these symbols, both simple enough to recognize and layered enough to conceal multiple meanings. The most well-known of these societies, the Freemasons, placed great emphasis on geometry, architecture, and the hidden laws of the universe. Their very name evokes the builders of sacred spaces, those who laid the foundations of cathedrals and temples with precise mathematical knowledge. Within Masonic lore, the eye came to represent the Eye of Providence, the watchful gaze of the great architect of the universe. For the Mason, this was not necessarily the god of any single religion, but a higher order, an ultimate intelligence that oversaw the cosmos. The all-seeing eye symbolized both divine vigilance and the enlightenment of the initiate, who, through discipline and study, learned to see hidden truths. But Masonic rituals went deeper than surface symbolism. The eye was often incorporated into initiation ceremonies, appearing in lodge rooms or ritual texts. To the initiate, it was a reminder that his actions, both within and outside the lodge, were observed, not just by his peers, but by higher powers. The eye was a moral compass as much as a mystical emblem, guiding the initiate to live with integrity while hinting at esoteric truths hidden behind the veil of ordinary life. Beyond the Masons, the eye was adopted into the lore of another infamous secret group, the Illuminati. Founded in Bavaria in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, the Illuminati sought to challenge entrenched religious and political authority, promoting reason, enlightenment, and the liberation of human thought. Yet to their enemies, they were seen as conspirators, plotting world domination from the shadows. Though the historical Illuminati were relatively short-lived, their legend has grown into one of the most pervasive conspiracy theories in history. And at the center of this legend, the eye is often portrayed as their emblem, symbolizing their hidden watchfulness and their quest to bring all of humanity under a singular, enlightened vision. Whether or not the Illuminati ever truly wielded such power, their association with the eye has become cemented in the popular imagination. Books, films, and theories routinely link the eye in the pyramid to the Illuminati, suggesting that this ancient symbol is the mark of a shadowy elite guiding the course of history. The fact that the eye appears on the American dollar bill, a nation founded the same year as the Bavarian Illuminati, has only fueled speculation that the symbol is not merely decorative but a bold declaration of hidden influence. Yet the eye is not confined to these two groups alone. Many esoteric traditions, from Rosicrucians to Hermeticists, have used eye symbolism to represent illumination, awakening, or divine presence. In alchemy, the eye sometimes appears as a representation of the inner sight required to transmute base matter into spiritual gold. In mystical Christianity, the single eye mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light," has been interpreted as a reference to the inner vision of the enlightened. Across these traditions, the eye functions as a marker of hidden wisdom, a reminder that truth is not found through ordinary sight, but through spiritual perception. But the eye's role in secret societies is not just spiritual, it is also political. To display the eye is to declare membership in a hidden lineage, to signal allegiance to a brotherhood that spans centuries. In the architecture of Europe and America, the eye can be found, carved into churches, government buildings, and monuments, often in contexts that seem oddly out of place unless one considers the hidden hand of esoteric orders. These placements are not accidental. They are statements of power, declarations that those who understand the symbol also wield influence over the structures, both literal and political, that govern society. This raises a provocative question. Is the eye a benevolent symbol of enlightenment, or a darker emblem of surveillance and control? Within the Freemasons, the eye represented the watchful gaze of the divine, guiding the initiate toward moral and spiritual growth. But to critics, the same symbol suggested authoritarian oversight, an invisible master watching and directing human affairs. Within the legend of the Illuminati, the eye takes on an even more sinister cast, the symbol of a hidden elite manipulating governments, economies, and populations from behind the curtain of democracy. It is this duality that makes the eye such a powerful symbol for secret societies. It is at once sacred and threatening, comforting and unsettling. For the initiate, it represents enlightenment and belonging. For the outsider, it suggests secrecy, exclusion, and manipulation. By embracing the eye, secret societies ensured that their influence would remain both visible and hidden, present in plain sight, yet understood only by those who knew the code. Over time, the eye became more than just a lodge symbol. It seeped into broader culture, carried by Masons, Rosicrucians, and other esoteric thinkers who left their mark on politics, architecture, and literature. The Great Seal of the United States, with its eye atop the unfinished pyramid, is perhaps the most famous example. Whether it was intended as a Masonic emblem or merely an artistic flourish, its adoption ensured that the eye would forever be associated with power, governance, and hidden influence. The fact that it appears on every U.S. dollar bill only reinforces this connection, embedding the eye into the fabric of everyday life, silently watching each financial transaction. To trace the eye through secret societies is to glimpse a hidden current beneath the surface of history. It suggests that symbols are not static decorations, but living codes, shaping the way people perceive power, authority, and spirituality. The eye in the pyramid is not simply a design. It is a declaration that secret knowledge exists, that those who wield it shape the world, and that humanity itself is under constant observation. Whether this observation is benevolent or sinister remains the central question, one that we must carry with us as we continue deeper into this mystery. For as we move beyond the halls of the Masons and the whispered legends of the Illuminati, the eye begins to take on an even larger stage. It shifts from the secrecy of lodges to the foundations of nations, from whispered rituals to public emblems of state. And in this transformation, we begin to understand that the eye in the pyramid is not only the symbol of secret societies. It may also be the key to understanding how symbols themselves guide the course of human history. The pyramid is one of the most enigmatic and enduring symbols humanity has ever constructed. It stands not only as an architectural feat of stone, but as a carefully encoded spiritual message, a message whispered across millennia, waiting for those with eyes to see. When we speak of the pyramid, we are not simply referring to a massive structure of limestone blocks set against the Egyptian desert. Instead, we are entering into a dialogue with a geometric form that civilizations across the globe, from Mesoamerica to Mesopotamia, recognized as a spiritual instrument. In this section, we explore how the pyramid has been understood as a symbol of spiritual ascent, a diagram of initiation, and a bridge between heaven and earth. For ancient Egypt, the pyramid was not just a tomb, it was a ladder. The very word they used, mer, was said to carry connotations of both a sacred place and a place of ascension. The sharply rising sides of the pyramid were thought to direct the soul upward, allowing the deceased pharaoh, now a divine being, to ascend to the stars. This ascent was no idle poetic flourish. The pyramid texts inscribed within the burial chambers of Egypt's earliest pyramids speak in glowing verses of the king's spirit rising as a flame, piercing through the vault of the sky, and joining the company of the imperishable stars. Here, we see the pyramid as a spiritual engine, its very form designed to facilitate the soul's journey to the afterlife. But why a pyramid? What is it about this shape that carries such weight? A pyramid, unlike a flat temple or a circular monument, brings everything to a single point. Its base spreads wide, encompassing the material world of multiplicity, but its apex focuses all energy and all vision upward to a singularity, a point beyond time and form. In this way, the pyramid becomes a metaphor for human life itself. We are scattered across the base of existence, filled with distractions, desires, and countless forms, yet the path of spiritual discipline is one of narrowing, refining, and concentrating until all things converge on the divine. The pyramid is geometry translated into mystical philosophy. This symbolism was not lost on other cultures. In Mesoamerica, for example, the great step pyramids at Teotihuacan or Chichen Itza also acted as stages for ritual dramas of death, renewal, and cosmic order. These pyramids, too, were designed with astronomical alignments, reflecting the movements of celestial bodies. The pyramid here becomes a world mountain, a place where the gods descend and where humanity reaches up to the heavens. Whether in the Egyptian desert or the jungles of the Yucatan, the pyramid was never just a construction of stone, but a spiritual axis, a meeting point between the terrestrial and the divine. The esoteric traditions of later ages absorbed and reinterpreted this spiritual geometry. For example, medieval and Renaissance mystics, many of whom never laid eyes on the pyramids of Giza, nonetheless saw the pyramid as a symbol of ascent. They adopted it as a hidden diagram of initiation, a way to teach students about the journey from ignorance to illumination. The wide base symbolized the material world, the beginning of the seeker's path, filled with shadows and confusion. Each layer or level of the pyramid represented a stage of initiation, requiring discipline, trial, and transformation. The final, shining apex symbolized union with the divine, the great mystery where the many becomes one. In this sense, the pyramid became an inner map of the human soul. Modern spiritual thinkers have taken this even further. Some argue that the pyramid is more than symbolic, that it is a literal energy generator. The pyramid shape, they claim, has subtle energetic properties. Food placed inside small-scale pyramids remains preserved longer. Razor blades sharpen themselves when left beneath miniature models. Meditation performed within pyramidal chambers produces heightened states of consciousness. While mainstream science dismisses such claims as pseudoscience, their persistence reveals the enduring belief that the pyramid is not simply stone and form, but a key to unseen forces. If the ancients knew of these properties, then the pyramid becomes something even more extraordinary, a massive instrument of spiritual technology. One of the most intriguing dimensions of the pyramid as a spiritual symbol is its connection with light. In esoteric traditions, the pyramid is often depicted as shining, its apex crowned with light, sometimes imagined as capped with gold or crystal. This is not mere decoration, but a profound metaphor. The pyramid becomes a vessel of illumination. Its point touches the heavens, drawing down light, while its base anchors into the earth, spreading that illumination across the world. In some Masonic and occult traditions, the radiant pyramid is used to symbolize enlightenment, the divine spark within humanity, and the possibility of bridging the gulf between heaven and earth. This interplay of earth and heaven, matter and spirit, is at the heart of the pyramid's spiritual meaning. The ancient Egyptians often refer to their land as the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt, which could also be understood symbolically as heaven and earth, spirit and matter. The pyramid unites these. Its four sides rise upward from the square base, earth, the material plane, to meet in the single apex, heaven, unity. In this way, the pyramid is not only a ladder, but also a cosmic marriage, a place where opposites converge. Mystery schools of later eras adopted this duality into their teachings. In the Hermetic traditions, often attributed to the legendary figure of Hermes Trismegistus, the phrase, as above, so below, became a guiding principle. The pyramid visually enacts this principle. Its shape mirrors the meeting of above and below, the descent of divine energy into the material plane and the ascent of human consciousness into the spiritual. For initiates, to contemplate the pyramid was to contemplate the very laws of the cosmos. And yet, there's a deeper question. Did the builders of these pyramids know they were encoding such universal truths? Or is the pyramid simply a timeless archetype, a shape that resonates with the human psyche across cultures and ages, regardless of intent? Perhaps it is both. Perhaps the pyramid is an archetypal form that naturally arises whenever humanity turns its gaze upward and seeks to embody its longing for the infinite. The Egyptians, with their unmatched genius for symbolism, may have given this archetype its most enduring expression, but they were certainly not alone in recognizing its power. Today, when we look at the pyramid, especially the Great Pyramid of Giza, we are not merely looking at an ancient ruin. We are looking at a living symbol, one that continues to invite us into contemplation. To stand before it is to feel the tension between earth and sky, body and soul, the many and the one. It is a silent teacher, reminding us of the path we, too, must walk, the path from the scattered base of our earthly lives to the radiant apex of spiritual realization. The pyramid, in this sense, is far more than history. It is destiny. It calls not only to our curiosity about ancient civilizations, but to our own deepest longing, the longing to rise, to transcend, to find our place among the stars. The eye in the pyramid, as we shall see in later sections, takes this symbol to an even higher dimension. But before we reach the mysteries of the eye itself, we must first grasp the full spiritual resonance of the pyramid, for only then can we understand why the union of eye and pyramid has haunted humanity's imagination for so many centuries. The all-seeing eye is one of humanity's oldest and most enduring symbols, but long before it became fixed atop the pyramid in modern iconography, appeared in civilizations scattered across the ancient world. From the banks of the Nile to the temples of Mesopotamia, from the shrines of India to the stone carvings of Mesoamerica, the motif of the eye emerges again and again, sometimes benevolent, sometimes terrifying, but always a symbol of vision, power, and hidden knowledge. In this section, we will travel through these cultures, tracing how the eye was understood as more than a biological organ. It was a gateway to spiritual perception, a weapon against evil, and a representation of divine omniscience. Let us begin in Egypt, for here the eye takes its most elaborate and celebrated forms. The Eye of Horus, known as the Wedjat, was one of the most potent protective amulets in the ancient world. According to myth, Horus, the falcon-headed god, lost his eye in a battle against his uncle Seth, the god of chaos. The eye was later restored, becoming a symbol of healing and wholeness. Each part of the Eye of Horus corresponded to a fraction, creating a mystical diagram in which vision, mathematics, and divine order converged. Egyptians wore the symbol around their necks, painted it on coffins, and carved it into temple walls, believing it guarded against harm and restored cosmic balance. But more than protection, the Eye of Horus represented something deeper. The idea that the gods see all, that nothing is hidden from divine sight. The Egyptians also revered the Eye of Ra, which was not the same as the Eye of Horus, but a related and equally powerful symbol. The Eye of Ra was personified as a fiery goddess, sometimes Sekhmet, sometimes Batet, sometimes Hathor, sent out by Ra to punish humanity when it strayed from the cosmic order. Here, the eye was not gentle or healing, but fierce and all-consuming, a burning gaze of divine justice. To stand under the Eye of Ra was to be judged by the sun itself, stripped bare by the eternal light. Thus, in Egypt alone, we see the two sides of the eye, protective and nurturing on the one hand, wrathful and destructive on the other. Together, they reveal the eye as a symbol of total vision, which both heals and destroys, depending on what it beholds. Moving eastward, we encounter similar imagery in Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. Here, archaeologists have uncovered thousands of small statues from ancient temples, figures with enormous, exaggerated eyes staring forward in eternal watchfulness. These votive statues, often left in the temples of gods like Enlil or Ishtar, symbolize perpetual devotion. The worshippers may not have been able to remain in the temple forever, but their statues could, their massive eyes locked in eternal gaze upon the divine. In the myths of Sumer and Akkad, too, the eyes of the gods are often emphasized. The goddess Inanna, for example, was said to flash her terrible eye at her enemies, scattering them in fear. The divine eye in Mesopotamia was a force of cosmic order, forever awake, forever observing. Crossing further into Asia, we find in India the concept of the third eye, an idea that would echo through esoteric traditions for millennia. In Hinduism and later in Buddhism, the third eye represents a spiritual center located between the eyebrows, the seat of inner perception and higher consciousness. Deities such as Shiva are often depicted with this third eye, a blazing point of insight that burns away illusion. Unlike the protective Eye of Horus or the wrathful Eye of Ra, the Indian third eye symbolizes awakening, the ability to perceive the hidden dimensions of reality. In yogic traditions, this is associated with the Ajna chakra, the command center of the subtle body, through which the practitioner perceives truths invisible to the ordinary senses. Here, the eye becomes the ultimate tool of liberation, opening the soul to unity with the cosmos. The motif of the all-seeing gaze also appears in ancient Greece. The Greeks inherited the Egyptian symbol through trade and cultural contact, but they also developed their own myths about eyes and vision. Consider the figure of Argus Panoptes, the hundred-eyed giant who could never be fully asleep, for while some of his eyes rested, others always watched. Argus was set as a guardian, his countless eyes a reminder that nothing escapes divine vigilance. The Greeks also spoke of the evil eye, the Madi, a curse delivered by a glance of envy. To protect against it, they wore charms resembling an eye, not unlike the protective amulets of Egypt. This belief spread widely, and even today, across the Mediterranean and Middle East, blue eye-shaped talismans are sold to ward off malevolent glances. The very act of seeing, in ancient thought, was a powerful force. It could heal, it could curse, it could connect human beings with the divine. Meanwhile, in the Americas, we find yet another iteration of the eye motif. The Aztec god Tezcatlipoca, often associated with sorcery and hidden knowledge, was sometimes depicted with a single smoking eye, gazing from a void. The Maya carved glyphs in which eyes radiated with divine power, associated with the movements of the sun and moon. The eye here once again becomes celestial, tied to the movements of the heavens, a reminder that the gods perceive not only the affairs of men, but the cosmic rhythms themselves. Why does the image of the eye appear in so many different places and times? Anthropologists suggest that eyes are inherently powerful symbols because of their psychological impact. To be watched is to feel accountable, to feel exposed. The eye creates presence. Even the symbol of an eye, not a real gaze, but the image of one, can make people act differently as though they are being observed. This is why so many cultures endowed the divine with eyes, to watch, to judge, to guide, and to protect. But the recurrence of the all-seeing eye across the world hints at something more than mere psychology. It suggests an archetype, a deep image embedded in the human psyche, representing the idea that there is always something greater than ourselves that perceives us. Call it the gods, call it the universe, call it consciousness itself. The eye reminds us that nothing is ever fully hidden. This archetype, Jung might say, arises independently in cultures because it is hardwired into the collective unconscious, a symbol of the eternal witness. Thus, by the time the eye appears in esoteric traditions and later atop the pyramid in modern iconography, it has already gathered immense symbolic weight. It is protective and destructive, healing and cursing, enlightening and terrifying. It is the eye of the gods, the third eye of liberation, the evil eye of envy, and the watchful eye of justice. In each case, it points to the same truth, that there exists a perception beyond the human, a gaze from which nothing can be hidden. When we place this eye within the pyramid, as later traditions would do, we are combining two of humanity's greatest archetypes, the symbol of spiritual ascent and the symbol of divine vision. Together, they create an image that is both haunting and magnetic. The eye in the pyramid, the eye that sees all from the apex of the world, guiding and judging humanity. But before we explore that ultimate fusion, we must continue to trace the journey of the eye through history, into the realms of mysticism, religion, and secret societies that would carry it forward into the modern age. The eye has never been just a religious emblem or an artistic flourish. Within the secretive folds of esoteric traditions, it becomes something far greater, a key to inner transformation, a map of hidden dimensions, and a symbol of the eternal presence of consciousness. In these teachings, the eye is not merely an organ of physical sight, but a portal into the mysteries of existence itself. To study the esoteric interpretations of the eye is to step into the shadowy realms of initiation, where symbols serve as veils, concealing profound truths from the uninitiated while revealing them to the worthy. The most enduring esoteric understanding of the eye is its association with illumination. Across the ages, mystics have spoken of an inner eye that opens once the seeker begins to perceive truth beyond the surface. This is not the biological eye, but what has been called the eye of the heart or the eye of the soul. In Christian mysticism, it was said, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light," echoing the idea of a spiritual vision that surpasses duality. In Islamic Sufi poetry, the heart's eye is spoken of as the organ by which one perceives divine beauty, unseen by ordinary vision. This inner eye does not see the material, but the eternal. It gazes beyond the illusions of time, space, and matter, into the infinite presence of the divine. The Hermetic traditions, inherited from Egypt and transformed through the Greco-Roman world, also gave central importance to the eye as a symbol of gnosis, the knowledge of the hidden. In the Hermetic texts, knowledge is often described as illumination or light, and the act of knowing is depicted as a dawning vision. To open the inner eye was to awaken from ignorance, to move from the shadows of the cave into the radiance of truth. The eye, in this sense, is not only passive perception but active awakening, the very moment when consciousness recognizes itself as divine. This symbolic language continued in the teachings of the Gnostics, who saw the world as a prison built of illusion, crafted by archons and false powers. To escape, one needed to awaken the higher perception, the pneumatic eye, as some described it, through which the soul recognized its true origins in the realm of light. The eye here becomes liberation itself. To see truly is to be free. In Gnostic art, one occasionally finds single eyes carved into amulets or stones, echoing this inner awakening. For the Gnostic initiate, vision was salvation. Alchemy, the great spiritual science of the Middle Ages, also drew upon the symbolism of the eye. In alchemical texts, the process of transmutation was often described in terms of seeing, not with ordinary eyes, but with an awakened perception that could pierce the veil of appearances. The philosopher's stone, said to transform base metal into gold, was equally a metaphor for transforming base consciousness into divine awareness. The alchemist's true task was to cultivate the inner eye that could perceive the hidden light in all things. Diagrams from Renaissance alchemy often depict eyes radiating beams of fire or light, suggesting that to perceive the truth was itself the highest alchemical achievement. The eye also finds a powerful place in Kabbalah, the Jewish mystical tradition. In the Zohar, one of the central texts of Kabbalah, God is sometimes described as the All-Seeing One, whose gaze sustains creation itself. But the mystics went further. They spoke of the human ability to reflect this divine gaze through the ayin, the eye of the soul. In meditative practices, the initiate was trained to focus upon the Ein Sof, the infinite, until the inner eye was awakened, perceiving the hidden structure of the Sphirot, the emanations of divine light. Here again, the eye was not merely symbolic, but functional. It was the very organ of mystical experience, enabling communion with the divine mysteries. In the Islamic world, Sufi mystics also meditated on the eye of the heart. They taught that the ordinary eye sees form, but the heart's eye sees essence. The Prophet Muhammad was said to have declared, "Beware the vision of the believer, for he sees with the light of God." This vision was not about physical sight, but about inner perception, a kind of spiritual witnessing that could pierce into truth. In Sufi poetry, the beloved's gaze often symbolizes this divine eye, an eye that sees beyond veils, penetrating straight into the soul. When we move into Western esoteric traditions, such as Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism, the eye begins to appear in more formalized symbolic diagrams. The all-seeing eye became a symbol of the great architect of the universe, whose vision governs all creation. In Masonic lodges, the eye is often depicted radiating beams of light, representing both divine providence and the awakened consciousness of the initiate. For Freemasons, symbols are teaching tools, and the eye teaches the lesson that nothing is hidden, that the initiate must cultivate integrity and awareness, knowing he is always seen by the great architect. Yet on a deeper level, the Masonic eye also suggests that the initiate himself is meant to awaken this all-seeing vision within, becoming aligned with divine consciousness. The esoteric interpretation of the eye also takes on a psychological dimension in modern traditions influenced by Jung and the depth psychologists. Carl Jung saw symbols like the eye as archetypes, primordial images that arise from the collective unconscious. To dream of an eye, or to meditate on the eye symbol, was to encounter the archetype of the witness, the eternal observer within the psyche that transcends the ego. This witness, Jung suggested, is a key to individuation, the process of becoming whole. In this way, the esoteric eye becomes not only a spiritual tool, but a psychological one, guiding the seeker into deeper integration of the self. The esoteric eye is also associated with the concept of surveillance by the divine. Unlike earthly surveillance, which can be oppressive, the divine gaze is said to liberate because it reminds the seeker that he is never separate from the whole. Some traditions describe this as a mirror. The eye of God gazes upon the human soul, but the human soul, once awakened, realizes it is itself that very gaze. The esoteric eye thus dissolves the boundary between observer and observed, revealing that consciousness is one. Yet the eye, in esotericism, is never one-dimensional. It contains paradoxes, is both light and fire, both healing and burning, both liberating and terrifying. The initiate who encounters the eye may feel awe, bliss, or dread, depending on how ready he is to face the truth. This duality is reflected in countless mystical texts that describe the divine as both a radiant sun and a consuming flame. The eye sees all, but not all can withstand its vision. This is why esoteric schools often guarded such teachings behind layers of secrecy and initiation. To open the eye prematurely, they warned, could overwhelm the unprepared soul. Thus, in esoteric interpretation, the eye is not a simple emblem, but a multi-layered symbol of awakening. It is the inner eye of the mystic, the radiant eye of the alchemist, the heart's eye of the Sufi, the all-seeing eye of the Mason, and the archetypal witness of the psyche. Across these traditions, one truth emerges. The eye represents consciousness itself, the eternal seeing that underlies all of existence. When later traditions placed the eye within the pyramid, they were not merely creating a random design. They were uniting two immense symbols: the pyramid, representing ascent and structure, and the eye, representing vision and awakening. Together, they form a single emblem of spiritual initiation, the journey upward into light, crowned by the all-seeing consciousness. But before we reach that ultimate synthesis, we must explore how the eye migrated from esoteric schools into the hands of secret societies and, eventually, into modern iconography. The joining of the eye and the pyramid is not simply an artistic invention of the modern age. Its roots can be traced back to the mystical practices of the ancient mystery schools, institutions that taught behind closed doors the hidden truths of life, death, and the cosmos. These schools, scattered across Egypt, Greece, and later Europe, were not concerned with teaching dogma to the masses. Instead, they guarded symbolic teachings that were revealed only through gradual initiation. At the center of these teachings, one often finds the imagery of ascent and illumination, precisely what the eye and the pyramid embody when joined together. To understand the role of these symbols in mystery schools, we must first appreciate what such schools were. Unlike public temples, which offered rituals to the entire community, mystery schools were selective. Candidates were chosen carefully and underwent long preparations. They were sworn to secrecy, often under penalty of death. The reason was simple. The teachings were believed to be too powerful, too dangerous for uninitiated minds. They could liberate, but they could also overwhelm. The very word mystery comes from the Greek Mayan, meaning to close the lips, a reminder that these truths were to be hidden from the unworthy. In Egypt, the pyramid itself may have been more than a tomb. It may have been an initiation chamber. Some researchers suggest that the Great Pyramid at Giza, with its winding passageways and chambers aligned to the stars, served as a stage for initiatory rites. The candidate would descend into darkness, facing symbolic death in the subterranean chamber, before rising upward through narrow passages, emerging into the king's chamber, a place of resonance and light. The journey was not simply physical, but spiritual. The pyramid, in this interpretation, was a map of transformation, guiding the initiate from death to rebirth, from ignorance to illumination. At the apex of this journey was the eye, the awakened vision of the soul. Greek mystery schools, such as those at Eleusis, also employed the symbolism of vision. The initiates at Eleusis were called epoptai, meaning those who have seen. The entire ritual centered on a secret revelation, a moment in which the candidate saw the hidden truth of life and death. The eye here was not literal, but symbolic of an awakened consciousness, a perception of realities beyond the ordinary. Though no text survived describing exactly what was revealed, countless ancient authors testified that the experience was transformative, filling initiates with hope for the afterlife and a sense of divine connection. The eye of the initiate was opened, and they were never the same again. The Pythagorean school, too, embraced similar imagery. Pythagoras is said to have traveled to Egypt and studied in their temples before founding his own brotherhood in Croton. His teachings wove together mathematics, music, and mysticism, emphasizing the harmony of the cosmos. In his school, the triangle, and by extension, the pyramid, was sacred. The triangle symbolized the balance of opposites united in harmony, a spiritual ascent toward unity. At the top of this ascent was illumination, the eye that perceives the whole. The Pythagoreans practiced strict secrecy, believing that only through discipline and purification could one ascend the pyramid of knowledge and awaken the inner vision. Later, the Platonic and Neoplatonic traditions took these ideas further. Plato himself hinted at a higher kind of vision, what he called the eye of the soul. In his dialogues, he described how this eye, long covered in the mud of ignorance, could be turned toward the light of truth. His famous allegory of the cave is essentially a drama of vision. The prisoner turns his eye from shadows toward the sun, symbolizing the ultimate source of truth. Later Neoplatonists like Plotinus spoke of the soul's ascent as a movement up an invisible pyramid, culminating in the vision of the One. For these philosophers, the entire spiritual path was about awakening the eye within and ascending to the summit of unity. The Hermetic tradition, arising in the early centuries of the Common Era and often linked to the legendary Hermes Trismegistus, echoed these teachings. The Hermetic writings describe the process of spiritual awakening as an act of sight. Close your eyes to what you see, and you will see what is not seen. The initiate was taught to rise above the material world and to awaken the divine eye, perceiving the hidden harmony of the cosmos. Hermetic diagrams often show pyramidal or triangular structures crowned with radiant eyes, foreshadowing the later emblem of the eye in the pyramid. By the time we reach the Renaissance, the mystery school tradition had been absorbed into Western esotericism. Secret societies like the Rosicrucians and later the Freemasons inherited and reinterpreted these ancient symbols. For them, the pyramid was a symbol of the great work, the slow building of the self into a perfected temple. The eye was illumination, the awakened state of the initiate who perceives divine truth. In Masonic lodges, the all-seeing eye was prominently displayed, reminding members that their actions were always under the watch of the great architect, but also hinting at the awakening of their own higher sight through the process of initiation. These societies often modeled their initiatory rituals on the same structure seen in Egypt and Greece: symbolic death, descent into darkness, a journey through trial, and then rebirth into light. This was the archetypal pattern of transformation, the journey up the pyramid of existence. At the end of this path, the candidate was expected to awaken the eye, to see with new vision. The eye and the pyramid thus became twin emblems of the mystery schools, encoding their teachings in silent stone and symbol. But why combine the two into a single image? The pyramid, as we have seen, represents structure, ascent, and initiation. The eye represents vision, awakening, and illumination. Together, they form a perfect synthesis: the path and the goal, the ascent and the illumination, the structure of initiation crowned by the awakened consciousness. For the initiate of the mystery schools, this was the deepest truth, that the path of discipline, symbolized by the pyramid, culminates in the vision of the divine, symbolized by the eye. This fusion of symbols was never displayed publicly. It was reserved for the initiated, encoded in diagrams, whispered in allegories, concealed in architecture. The masses saw temples and rituals. The initiates saw the deeper truth, the pyramid of ascent crowned by the eye of illumination. It was a secret teaching, preserved across centuries, carried in silence from one generation to the next. Even today, echoes of this esoteric union survive. In certain traditions of Freemasonry, the pyramid is still invoked as a symbol of the lodge itself, the place of labor and ascent, while the all-seeing eye hovers above as a reminder of illumination. In esoteric art, we find diagrams of pyramids crowned by radiant eyes, representing the final goal of initiation. And in popular culture, the fusion of the eye and pyramid has become one of the most recognized symbols of all time, often misunderstood but still charged with the same archetypal power. The mystery schools taught in silence, but their symbols still speak. To those who have eyes to see, the eye and the pyramid together tell the story of humanity's eternal quest, to ascend from ignorance into wisdom, from darkness into light, from blindness into vision. It is a path hidden in stone, guarded in symbol, revealed only to those willing to walk the long journey of initiation. By the late 18th century, the mysterious image of the eye and the pyramid resurfaced in a dramatic and enduring way on the Great Seal of the United States. Known popularly as the Eye of Providence, this symbol would come to define countless debates about the founding of America, secret societies, and hidden agendas. Was it simply a decorative emblem, chosen by men of reason and enlightenment? Or was it, as some argue, a deliberate invocation of ancient mystery school teachings, a talisman meant to consecrate the new nation with an esoteric destiny? To answer these questions, we must peel back layers of history, examining not only the official story, but also the symbolic undercurrents that swirled around the birth of America. The first attempt to design the Great Seal came in 1776, the very year of the Declaration of Independence. The Continental Congress appointed a committee that included Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams. Their designs were elaborate and infused with biblical and classical symbolism. Franklin suggested an image of Moses dividing the Red Sea. Jefferson leaned toward classical allegories of freedom and virtue. None of these proposals included the eye in the pyramid. Instead, the symbol emerged in later drafts. It was not until 1782 that the final design was approved. Charles Thomson, the Secretary of Congress, compiled elements from earlier sketches and introduced the pyramid with the all-seeing eye above it. The official description reads, "A pyramid unfinished. In the zenith, an eye in a triangle surrounded with a glory proper." Beneath the pyramid was written the phrase Navis Ordo Seclorum, a new order of the ages. This combination of symbols and words has haunted imaginations ever since. On the surface, the Eye of Providence was a Christian symbol. In European art of the Renaissance and Baroque periods, the eye within a triangle often represented the omniscience of God, the divine eye watching over humanity. Church paintings showed it radiating from heaven, a reminder that nothing escaped God's gaze. But in the context of America's founding, the symbol took on new layers. The pyramid was not a Christian emblem. It was an Egyptian one, tied to antiquity and endurance. The combination of the two suggested more than simple piety. It suggested a link between ancient wisdom and divine oversight, as though the new nation was being established under both the watchful eye of providence and the eternal foundation of the mysteries. The choice of a pyramid itself is curious. The United States had no pyramids. Its architecture was classical, not Egyptian. Why, then, was the pyramid chosen as the central image of the seal's reverse? One explanation is that the pyramid symbolized strength and durability. An unfinished pyramid implied a nation still in the process of building. The eye above symbolized guidance from providence, ensuring that the work would be completed. But critics and esoteric interpreters have always seen more. To them, the pyramid evoked the great monuments of Egypt, repositories of hidden wisdom, markers of humanity's lost golden age. By crowning this pyramid with the radiant eye, the seal seemed to proclaim America as the inheritor of that ancient wisdom. The Latin mottos deepened the sense of hidden meaning. Annuit coeptis, he has favored our undertakings, was placed above the eye, suggesting divine sanction. Navis Ordo Seclorum below the pyramid carried a more mysterious resonance. Officially, it was a line taken from the Roman poet Virgil, celebrating a new era of peace. But translated literally, it reads a new order of the ages. For many, this was no coincidence. Was America to be merely another republic, or was it conceived as the dawn of a new world order, a civilization guided by hidden principles and esoteric truths? At the heart of these suspicions lies the question of Freemasonry. Many of the founding fathers, including George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, were known Freemasons. The Masonic Lodge itself was steeped in symbols of pyramids, pillars, and the all-seeing eye. Within Masonry, the eye represented the watchful presence of the great architect of the universe, while the pyramid or unfinished structure symbolized humanity's ongoing work to perfect itself and society. To see these very images transplanted into the Great Seal was enough to convince later observers that America had been secretly consecrated as a Masonic project. Yet the story is not so simple. Not all the designers of the seal were Freemasons, and historical records do not prove that the eye in the pyramid was adopted specifically as a Masonic emblem. Still, the overlap is striking. Both traditions, Masonry and the symbolism of the seal, drew from the same reservoir of ancient and esoteric imagery, blending Enlightenment ideals with mystical archetypes. Whether or not it was a deliberate Masonic insertion, the effect was the same. The symbol carried with it the aura of initiation, secrecy, and hidden destiny. As the centuries passed, the eye in the pyramid became inseparable from America's national identity. For most citizens, it was simply a patriotic emblem, printed on currency and official documents. But for others, mystics, conspiracy theorists, and esotericists, it was proof of something deeper. They saw it as a declaration that America was not just a political experiment, but a spiritual one, a nation founded to bring about a new epoch in human history. Writers like Manly P. Hall, a 20th century esoteric philosopher, argued that America was the culmination of an ancient plan, guided by secret orders to establish a land of liberty where the mysteries could once again flourish. Hall's vision portrayed the Great Seal as a kind of prophecy. The unfinished pyramid represented humanity's work still incomplete. The eye symbolized higher wisdom guiding the process. Together, they proclaimed that the destiny of America was not yet fulfilled, but that it was under divine and esoteric supervision. For Hall and others, the United States was meant to be the cradle of a new spiritual awakening, the new order of the ages foretold not just by Virgil, but by the adepts of old. Of course, mainstream historians dismiss these interpretations. To them, the Eye of Providence is simply a Christian symbol of God's watchfulness, while the pyramid is a practical emblem of strength. The Latin phrases were chosen from classical sources to lend dignity and gravitas. There is no hidden conspiracy. They insist only the imagination of later interpreters projecting mysteries where none existed. And yet, the very ambiguity of the symbol ensures its power. The eye in the pyramid hovers above the unfinished work of America, radiating light. Whether seen as divine guidance, Masonic oversight, or ancient prophecy, it exerts a magnetic pull on the imagination. Its presence on the dollar bill, carried daily by millions, ensures that the image is not only national but global, a silent proclamation seen by nearly every eye on earth. The Eye of Providence in early America, thus, stands at a crossroads of history and mystery. It is at once an official emblem of a nation and a whisper of something older, deeper, more hidden. It invites questions. Who truly guides the destiny of nations? What ancient wisdom lies behind the symbols we take for granted? And does America, with its unfinished pyramid, still have a secret role to play in the unfolding order of the ages? The debate will never be settled, but that may be the point. Mystery thrives in ambiguity, and the eye in the pyramid, as it appeared on the Great Seal, ensures that America's story will always be shadowed by questions, by hints of hidden architects, by the possibility that the nation was born under more than human guidance. In that silence between official history and esoteric speculation, the symbol lives, radiant, watchful, and eternal. When we speak of the eye in the pyramid today, one association rises above all others: Freemasonry. For centuries, the Masonic fraternity has been wrapped in mystery, whispered about in taverns and pulpits, accused of holding secrets too dangerous for the public. At the heart of these whispers lies a set of symbols: the compass and square, the pillars, the unfinished temple, and, most haunting of all, the all-seeing eye. It is impossible to separate the history of the eye from the history of the secret societies that adopted it. But to understand how the eye became central to Masonic lore, we must look first at what Masonry itself claims to be, and what its critics have always suspected it truly is. Freemasonry emerged in the early modern period, crystallizing in the 17th and 18th centuries. Outwardly, it presented itself as a fraternity of moral improvement, drawing upon allegories of stone-cutting and architecture. Members were builders, not of cathedrals, but of character, tasked with perfecting themselves as living temples. Yet beneath the surface, Masonry retained traces of older traditions, initiations, oaths of secrecy, and a fascination with esoteric knowledge. This is where the eye comes into play. In Masonic symbolism, the eye most often appears as the all-seeing eye of the great architect of the universe. It gazes from within a triangle, radiating light. Officially, it represents divine watchfulness, the ever-present gaze of God overseeing the moral conduct of the brethren. But in Masonic ritual, the meaning is layered. The initiate is reminded that his thoughts and actions are never hidden. That truth, like the eye, pierces all veils. It is both a moral admonition and a mystical invitation. The pyramid, while less prominent in Masonry than the eye, nonetheless makes its presence felt through allegories of building, labor, and ascent. Freemasons speak of the unfinished Temple of Solomon, which each brother must help to complete symbolically. In this sense, the pyramid is not far removed from the temple. Both represent the great work of humanity, a structure that is not yet finished, but which points heavenward. The eye above it reminds the initiate that this labor is divinely guided. It is in the combination of these images that suspicions deepen. For those outside the fraternity, the eye in the pyramid seems to suggest a secret doctrine, that Freemasonry holds the key to hidden wisdom, and that its members are building something greater than stone lodges, perhaps even a new order for humanity itself. Critics of Masonry, particularly in the 18th and 19th centuries, certainly believed this. In Europe, the Catholic Church condemned Masonry as heretical, accusing it of replacing God with a vague great architect. In America, the anti-Masonic movement of the 1820s and 1830s portrayed the fraternity as a shadowy power, manipulating politics from behind the scenes. Pamphlets and sermons denounced the eye as a sign of surveillance and control, proof that Masonry was watching everything, answerable to no one. Yet within the lodges, the meaning was subtler. The eye was less about domination than illumination. The initiate who climbed the degrees of Masonry was undergoing an inner ascent, not unlike the climb up a symbolic pyramid. Each degree brought him closer to the summit, where he might awaken the third eye of understanding. In this sense, the eye represented not only divine watchfulness, but the potential of human perception expanded beyond the ordinary. To see, as the all-seeing eye sees, was the ultimate goal of the adept. Freemasonry was not the only secret society to use the symbol. The Rosicrucians, a mysterious order said to have emerged in the 17th century, also invoked the eye as a symbol of inner illumination. Their manifestos spoke of a hidden brotherhood working to reform the world, guided by secret wisdom. Though their imagery often favored roses, crosses, and stars, the theme of awakened vision was central. Later esoteric groups, from the Golden Dawn to modern occult orders, likewise employed the eye as a reminder of higher sight. But Masonry's adoption of the eye ensured its spread far beyond the lodge. As Freemasons held positions of influence in governments, banks, and academies, their symbols seeped into public architecture. Courthouses, libraries, and state buildings across Europe and America began to feature the all-seeing eye, often in stone or stained glass. Sometimes it hovered alone. Sometimes it crowned pyramidal structures. To the uninitiated, it was an ornament. To the initiated, it was a subtle declaration. The mysteries were alive, hidden in plain sight. Conspiracy theories flourished in this atmosphere. The French Revolution, some argued, had been orchestrated by Freemasons using their symbols as hidden signatures. The revolutions of 1848, too, were accused of bearing Masonic fingerprints. In each case, the eye was cited as proof, a silent overseer, winking from banners and seals, promising a new order. Yet to dismiss all this as paranoia is to overlook something important. Symbols matter. They carry power not only through their official meanings, but through their resonance in the human psyche. The eye and the pyramid have been a symbol of initiation for millennia, from Egyptian tombs to Greek mystery schools. When Masonry adopted it, they tapped into that reservoir of archetypal meaning. Whether or not Masons secretly plotted world events, the symbol itself worked upon the imagination, inviting people to suspect, to question, to wonder what lay hidden. Some modern scholars suggest that this was intentional. By cloaking themselves in ambiguous symbols, Freemasons ensured that their fraternity would always remain partly hidden, partly misunderstood. The symbol of the eye became both a shield and a mirror. A shield to deflect curiosity with ambiguity, and a mirror in which outsiders projected their own fears and fantasies. In this way, the eye fulfilled its purpose perfectly. It kept the mystery alive. We must also consider the mystical interpretations from within esoteric traditions themselves. To the adept, the eye is not about surveillance or control, but awakening. It is the inner eye that perceives unity behind diversity, the divine harmony that ordinary senses cannot grasp. The pyramid is the labor of self-transformation, each stone a lesson, each step an initiation. When crowned by the eye, the pyramid becomes the perfected self, illumined by higher vision. To those within the mystery schools, and to Freemasons who embraced the deeper teachings, this was the true meaning. Still, in the public imagination, the eye in the pyramid remains inseparable from secrecy and power. Its presence on the dollar bill, tied to the Great Seal, is often attributed to Masonic influence, though the historical record is more complex. Whether or not the Masons directly inserted it, the overlap of symbols ensures that suspicion will never fade. In the end, the relationship between Freemasonry, secret societies, and the eye in the pyramid is both simple and endlessly complex. Simple, because the symbol represents the same archetypal themes it always has: vision, ascent, illumination. Complex, because those themes have been entangled with centuries of secrecy, politics, and conspiracy. The eye gazes out from its radiant triangle, and we gaze back, uncertain whether it blesses us, warns us, or hides a truth too vast to reveal. What cannot be denied is that the eye in Freemasonry and other secret societies transformed the symbol into something living. It was no longer just an ancient glyph carved in stone. It was a banner under which men swore oaths, performed rites, and imagined themselves heirs to a hidden tradition. It was a reminder that the world is not entirely as it seems, that above the unfinished work of humanity, there hovers a light, an eye, a mystery. By the 19th and 20th centuries, the eye in the pyramid had already traveled far from its ancient Egyptian origins. It had been reinterpreted by mystery schools, enshrined in Masonic lodges, and immortalized on America's Great Seal. But in this era of spiritual upheaval and intellectual curiosity, the symbol entered a new phase of life, one shaped by occult societies, esoteric revivals, and the rise of modern mysticism. The 19th century was a time of profound spiritual searching. Traditional religion was being shaken by science, archaeology, and industrial progress. Darwin's theory of evolution challenged biblical creation. Discoveries in Egypt and Mesopotamia unearthed forgotten civilizations, and new philosophies questioned humanity's place in the cosmos. Into this vacuum poured a hunger for alternative knowledge, wisdom that claimed to bridge science and spirituality, reason and mysticism. The eye in the pyramid became a perfect emblem for this quest. One of the earliest and most influential groups to embrace esoteric symbolism in this era was the Theosophical Society, founded in 1875 by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, Henry Steele Olcott, and William Quan Judge. Theosophy claimed to be the revival of an ancient wisdom tradition, said to be guarded by hidden masters in the Himalayas. Its emblem was a tapestry of symbols: the swastika, the Ouroboros, the Ankh, the hexagram, and yes, the eye. For Blavatsky and her followers, the eye represented not only divine oversight, but also the awakening of clairvoyant vision, the ability to pierce beyond the material veil into higher planes of reality. Theosophy's teachings about the third eye directly connected the symbol to the physiology of the human body. Blavatsky described the pineal gland, a tiny organ in the brain, as the vestigial remnant of a once active spiritual eye. In ancient humanity, she claimed, this organ allowed people to perceive subtler realms, but over time it had atrophied. Through spiritual practice, however, it could be reawakened. The eye in the pyramid, in this interpretation, symbolized not just an external divinity, but an internal power latent within every human being. The pyramid represented the stages of human evolution, and the eye was the final goal: illumination and superhuman vision. This connection between the eye and human consciousness was echoed in another important movement, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, founded in London in 1887. This secret society sought to synthesize ceremonial magic, Kabbalah, astrology, and alchemy into a single system of initiation. Its elaborate rituals guided initiates through symbolic journeys, much like the ancient mystery schools. The eye was ever present in Golden Dawn imagery. In their initiations, the candidate was symbolically blindfolded, then had their eyes open to the light of hidden knowledge. Drawings from the order depict pyramids with radiant eyes, representing the culmination of magical ascent. For Golden Dawn magicians, the eye was both protective and revelatory. It symbolized the awakened perception of the adept, capable of seeing through illusions and commanding spiritual forces. Some rituals even invoked the Eye of Horus directly, linking the order to Egyptian magic. In these practices, the pyramid was not merely a metaphor, but a cosmic diagram, the structure of the universe itself. At its apex, the eye revealed the unity of the divine. Occult revival was not confined to Europe. In America, esoteric groups flourished in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The Rosicrucian order, Amorc, founded by H. Spencer Lewis in 1915, adopted a blend of mystical Christianity, alchemy, and Egyptian symbolism. Their teachings spoke often of pyramids as initiatory chambers and of the eye within as the organ of mystical vision. In their literature and artwork, the eye in the pyramid appeared as a guiding emblem, marking the initiate's ascent toward truth. By the 20th century, the symbol had also entered the orbit of Aleister Crowley, the notorious magician and self-styled prophet of the new aeon. Crowley, a former member of the Golden Dawn, founded his own system called Thelema. He placed extraordinary emphasis on the eye, particularly the Eye of Horus, which he associated with the new age of human consciousness. Crowley proclaimed that the 20th century marked the dawn of the Aeon of Horus, in which humanity would awaken to its divine potential. The eye, in this vision, was the sign of a new spiritual epoch. His rituals and writings often depicted the eye above pyramidal altars, radiating light as a symbol of liberated will. Parallel to these occult currents was the rise of esoteric art and literature. Painters, poets, and novelists drew upon mystical symbols to express their visions. The eye in the pyramid found its way into surrealist canvases, alchemical illustrations, and pulp novels about secret societies. It became shorthand for forbidden knowledge, the suggestion that behind ordinary appearances lay hidden forces shaping reality. In the early 20th century, the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 further inflamed fascination with Egypt and its symbols. Newspapers around the world carried images of the Eye of Horus, warning of the pharaoh's curse. The pyramid and the eye became icons of mystery, magic, and danger. Occult groups capitalized on this frenzy, presenting themselves as heirs to the wisdom of the Nile. The eye and the pyramid thus became not only a spiritual emblem, but a cultural phenomenon, woven into the imagination of the age. By mid-century, the symbol had spread even further through the rise of popular esotericism. Figures like Manly P. Hall, whose monumental book The Secret Teachings of All Ages, 1928, cataloged the world's mystical traditions, presented the eye and pyramid as universal archetypes. Hall described the Great Seal of the United States as a mystical prophecy, with the eye representing higher wisdom and the unfinished pyramid symbolizing humanity's ongoing evolution. His lectures and writings inspired generations of seekers, cementing the image as a central icon of Western esotericism. From these movements, one pattern becomes clear. The eye and the pyramid consistently served as a bridge between the outer and the inner, the visible and the invisible. The pyramid was structure, effort, discipline. The eye was vision, illumination, gnosis. Together, they offered a map of transformation. The seeker who joined a lodge, society, or order was undertaking a journey up the pyramid of initiation. At the summit awaited the eye, the awakening of perception, the direct encounter with the divine. Yet this symbolism was not without its dangers. Just as in earlier centuries, the adoption of the eye by occult movements invited suspicion. Critics saw it as proof of secret cabals, plotting in darkness. Governments banned or persecuted some of these societies, fearing their influence. The eye, radiant in its triangle, was accused of being not a symbol of illumination but of control. The ambiguity of the image, divine to some, sinister to others, ensured its enduring magnetism. By the late 20th century, the eye and the pyramid had become so widespread that it transcended the boundaries of occult circles. It appeared in New Age books, psychedelic art, and countercultural movements. It adorned posters, album covers, and underground magazines. It had become an icon of rebellion and hidden truth, embraced by those who distrusted mainstream narratives and sought alternative realities. The esoteric revival of the 19th and 20th centuries thus transformed the eye in the pyramid from a relatively obscure symbol into a global emblem of mystery. No longer confined to temples or lodges, it now belonged to a wider culture of seekers, rebels, and visionaries. To some, it was still the eye of God, to others the third eye of the human soul, to still others the watchful gaze of secret masters. What united all these interpretations was the sense that the eye in the pyramid pointed beyond the surface of life. It suggested that history, society, and even consciousness itself were unfinished structures, guided by forces unseen. Whether those forces were divine, esoteric, or conspiratorial remained the great question. And that question, open, unsettling, eternal, ensured that the symbol would continue to haunt the imagination of humanity for generations to come. The eye in the pyramid has traveled across millennia, from the sands of Egypt to the secret lodges of Europe, from the altars of mystery schools to the official seals of powerful nations. But while its ancient meanings fascinate historians and esoteric seekers alike, perhaps the most provocative question is this: what does the symbol mean today? Why does it continue to appear modern? Institutions, corporations, and conspiracy theories that shape the narratives of our age? To answer this, we must step into the murky realm of modern geopolitics, secret societies, and the controversial idea of the New World Order. The phrase New World Order itself is a loaded term. To mainstream political discourse, It sometimes refers to a period of global restructuring after major wars, when new alliances and institutions emerge. For example, after World War II, the founding of the United Nations, the Bretton Woods financial system, and NATO were hailed as efforts to stabilize and unify the world under new cooperative structures. However, in the esoteric and conspiratorial world, New World Order carries a far more sinister meaning. It represents the idea that an elite cabal of secretive powers, often linked to symbols like the eye and the pyramid, is working behind the scenes to control humanity, centralize authority, and engineer society according to hidden agendas. The eye and the pyramid, in this framework, becomes more than a relic of ancient wisdom or Enlightenment-era symbolism. It becomes a banner, a coded insignia of a shadow government, an all-seeing force that observes humanity not from the heavens, but from the boardrooms, intelligence agencies, and hidden councils of our modern world. Surveillance and the all-seeing, one of the most obvious modern parallels, is the rise of mass surveillance. In a world where satellites, drones, biometric databases, and artificial intelligence track movements and analyze behavior, the all-seeing aspect of the eye seems eerily prophetic. To some, the eye in the pyramid is no longer symbolic, it is literal. The vast digital infrastructure of governments and corporations functions as a giant invisible eye, gathering data, monitoring activity, and predicting behavior. Consider how often conspiracy theorists point to the symbolism of the eye on the dollar bill in the context of intelligence agencies like the CIA or NSA. These organizations, with their secret budgets, clandestine operations, and reputation for omniscience, are sometimes described as the earthly equivalent of the Eye of Providence. In pop culture, films like Enemy of the State or series like Black Mirror play into this theme, painting a world where no action escapes unseen, no secret remains hidden, and individuals live under the gaze of a modern pyramid, towering institutions built on secrecy and control. Global finance and the pyramid itself, with its wide base and narrow apex, is often interpreted as a metaphor for hierarchical power structures. In economic terms, it suggests that the wealth and labor of the many support the privileges and decisions of the few at the top. Modern critics of global finance argue that this pyramid has only grown steeper in recent decades. International banking systems, multinational corporations, and centralized financial institutions like the Federal Reserve or the International Monetary Fund are frequently cast as instruments of this pyramid. And here, again, the eye emerges as the crowning capstone, an unseen intelligence guiding the system. Whether one views it as benign oversight or malevolent control, the symbolism resonates. The pyramid is not complete without its eye. To conspiracy researchers, this is not an accident. They argue that the very choice of the pyramid and eye motif for America's Great Seal and its dollar bill hints at a global plan, a centuries-long project to unify the world under a hidden elite. The eye in popular culture, but the eye in the pyramid doesn't remain confined to dollar bills and government seals. It floods popular culture, often through entertainment, art, and media. Countless music videos, films, and advertisements have prominently featured the single eye motif, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly. Celebrities covering one eye, directors framing shots with pyramid-like imagery, or artists embedding occult symbolism in their work all contribute to the impression that the eye has become the visual language of influence. For skeptics, this is merely coincidence or aesthetic choice. For believers, however, it signals alignment with the so-called Illuminati, a shadowy network of entertainers, politicians, and financiers allegedly working together to steer culture and society. Whether real or imagined, the constant reappearance of the eye reinforces its power in the public consciousness. The more it appears, the more it becomes a modern myth, a signifier of hidden hands pulling unseen strings. Secret societies and political power behind all these layers lies the enduring suspicion of secret societies. Freemasonry, the Illuminati, the Rosicrucians, Skull and Bones, and countless others have all been accused, fairly or unfairly, of using the eye in the pyramid as a sign of their continuity and hidden influence. Rituals, initiation ceremonies, and esoteric teachings often use symbols to communicate truths that cannot be spoken. In this sense, the eye is both a password and a warning, a symbol of knowledge for insiders and a signal of control for outsiders. It is not hard to see why conspiracy theories tie these groups to the idea of a new world order. If the pyramid represents the structure of global governance, and the eye represents the knowledge or control at its peak, then these societies are imagined as the guardians of that knowledge, the ones standing closest to the eye itself. Some theories suggest that the eye is not just symbolic, but literal, an ancient source of knowledge, perhaps extraterrestrial or divine, preserved by the initiated for use in constructing a future world government. From the Cold War to the digital age, the 20th century was fertile ground for these theories. During the Cold War, propaganda, secrecy, and shadow conflicts gave rise to paranoia about hidden hands guiding world events. With the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the Watergate scandal, and later revelations about covert operations, many began to see the eye not as a benevolent overseer, but as a manipulative, deceptive force. Fast forward to the 21st century and the rise of digital communication, social media, and artificial intelligence only amplifies this. The idea of the eye as surveillance is no longer abstract. It is tangible in the way algorithms know preferences, habits, and desires better than individuals know themselves. The pyramid of power seems higher, the capstone more distant, and the gaze of the eye more penetrating than ever before. The ambiguity of the symbol, and yet, despite its ominous associations, the eye in the pyramid still carries dual meanings. For some, it remains a symbol of enlightenment, a reminder that higher wisdom and unity are possible. For others, it is an emblem of oppression, a warning that humanity is sleepwalking into a global system of control. This duality is precisely why the symbol endures. It can inspire and terrify, liberate and enslave, depending on who wields it and how it is interpreted. In this way, the eye in the pyramid has become the perfect emblem for the New World Order debate. It is a mirror, reflecting both humanity's aspirations for a better, more unified world and its fears of losing freedom to an unseen authority. Whether real conspiracy or collective projection, the eye thrives in the fertile soil of uncertainty, secrecy, and symbolism. And so, as we step closer to the climax of our exploration, we must ask, if the eye in the pyramid has been carried from ancient temples to modern institutions, from mystery schools to surveillance satellites, then what is its ultimate purpose? Is it merely a symbol of watchfulness? Or is it a blueprint for a hidden plan, one whose climax is yet to unfold? The stage is set for the ultimate revelation. The eye in the pyramid has always been more than a static emblem. It is a living symbol, one that stretches across ages, continually reshaped by the hopes, fears, and myths of humanity. Yet, among the most powerful threads that surround it, none are as compelling or as unsettling as prophecy. For centuries, mystics, prophets, and seers have connected the eye to visions of apocalypse, world transformation, and the coming of a new age. This section takes us into that liminal space between history and destiny, where the eye no longer represents the past, nor even the present, but the future, a future that may involve the end of the world as we know it, or the unveiling of an entirely new epoch for humanity. The eye and the end of time, many ancient traditions foresaw an eventual collapse of the current order, followed by a renewal or rebirth. In Christian eschatology, the Book of Revelation paints the picture of an apocalyptic struggle between forces of light and darkness, culminating in the descent of a new Jerusalem. Some interpreters have noticed how the descriptions of this heavenly city bear geometric similarities to the pyramid, an immense, perfect structure descending from above, suffused with light, watched over by the divine. The eye, in this interpretation, becomes the gaze of God upon the final chapter of history. The watchers, angels, and seers who record humanity's deeds are echoed in the all-seeing motif. To believers, the eye is a reminder that nothing escapes divine judgment. But to esotericists, it carries an additional meaning, that the eye signals the great unveiling, a time when secret knowledge will be laid bare and humanity will be forced to confront truths long hidden. Nostradamus and hidden symbols. Few names evoke prophecy more than Nostradamus, the French seer whose cryptic quatrains have been pored over for centuries. While he does not explicitly mention the eye and the pyramid, many interpreters have connected his references to the great mountain, the single eye in the sky, or the burning star with this symbol. In the fevered imagination of readers, Nostradamus's visions of upheaval, wars, floods, and the rise of hidden powers are often framed within the larger mythology of the eye. What makes Nostradamus particularly compelling in this context is his obsession with coded language. His verses, cloaked in metaphor, function much like the symbol of the eye itself, revealing to the initiated, confusing to the unprepared. To those who believe the eye marks the path to apocalypse, Nostradamus becomes one of its prophets, a man who glimpsed the capstone before its full descent. The Mayan calendar and the New Age, the Mayan long count calendar, which famously ended a major cycle in 2012, is another touchstone for apocalyptic speculation. While the world did not end in fire or flood that year, many spiritual movements argue that a subtle transformation had indeed occurred, a shift in consciousness, the dawn of a new vibration in human awareness. Here again, the eye in the pyramid takes on a role. It becomes the symbol of awakening, the third eye opening across the collective mind of humanity. Just as the pyramid points upward toward a higher realm, the eye represents the moment when the veil of illusion drops and humanity begins to perceive the hidden structures of reality. The apocalypse, then, is not annihilation, but revelation, literally the meaning of the Greek word apocalypsis. Islamic and Eastern prophecies of a final deceiver, the Dajjal in Islamic tradition, add another chilling layer. The Dajjal is often described as a one-eyed figure, leading many to associate his appearance with the single-eye motif. In popular imagination, this connects directly to the eye in the pyramid, suggesting that the symbol may not be divine at all, but a counterfeit, an emblem of deception rather than enlightenment. In Eastern traditions, too, there are echoes. Hindu cosmology speaks of the Kali Yuga, the dark age in which humanity loses touch with the divine and is ruled by corruption and ignorance. Yet at its end, a new cycle is promised, heralded by the return of Vishnu as Kalki. In Buddhist texts, the coming of Maitreya signals the restoration of Dharma. In each of these visions, there is both collapse and renewal, destruction, followed by awakening. And the eye, as the eternal watcher, can be read as the symbol of both forces, the judgment of the old order and the guiding light into the new. The eye is a prophetic blueprint. One of the most intriguing theories suggests that the pyramid itself is a prophecy carved in stone. Researchers of the so-called pyramid timeline argue that the internal passages of the Great Pyramid of Giza encode a chronological map of human history. According to this interpretation, each chamber, shaft, and intersection represents a key moment in time, culminating in a final chamber of revelation. At the apex, where the eye would rest if the pyramid were completed with its capstone, lies the symbol of culmination, the end of one age and the birth of another. The eye is therefore not just a reminder of watchfulness, but a calendar, a marker of destiny waiting to be fulfilled. For those who subscribe to this theory, the unfinished pyramid on the dollar bill is more than artistic design. It is a literal prophecy suggesting that humanity has not yet reached its final chapter, and the eye will only truly descend when the world enters its ultimate transformation. Apocalyptic fears in the modern era, in modern times, the eye has been woven into countless apocalyptic fears. During the Cold War, it was nuclear annihilation. In the 1990s, it was Y2K. In the early 2000s, it was terrorism and global conflict. More recently, it is artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and climate catastrophe. Each new global anxiety seems to project itself onto the eye, as though the symbol is a canvas for our deepest fears of collapse. The New World Order theories explored in the previous section dovetail perfectly with this apocalyptic lens. The eye is not just watching. It is preparing, orchestrating, guiding humanity toward a climax. To some, this climax is liberation, the return of the divine, the unveiling of truth. To others, it is enslavement, a global system of control where the pyramid's apex finally locks into place, sealing humanity within a structure of absolute surveillance and dominance. The eye is hope and warning, and yet prophecy is rarely one-sided. For every vision of destruction, there is a promise of renewal. The eye, hovering above the pyramid, is also a beacon of hope. It suggests that higher wisdom still watches, that order can emerge from chaos, that humanity is not abandoned but guided. Perhaps the eye represents the potential for a collective awakening, a global consciousness finally aware of its interconnectedness. This is the paradox at the heart of the eye in the pyramid as prophecy. It is both doom and salvation, deception and truth, blindness and sight. Just as an eye can either illuminate or deceive, so too can the symbol guide us to freedom or ensnare us in illusion. Which of these outcomes will unfold depends not on the eye itself, but on humanity's response to it. Toward the final revelation, as we near the end of our exploration, we see that the eye in the pyramid is more than a relic of history or a tool of secret societies. It is a prophetic symbol, one that points toward humanity's destiny. Whether that destiny is an apocalypse of fire or a revelation of truth remains uncertain. But the persistence of the symbol across cultures, religions, and ages suggests that it carries an archetypal weight. It is a signpost at the edge of time, waiting for its meaning to be fully revealed. The eye is watching. The pyramid is waiting. The question is no longer where the symbol came from, but where it leads. And if the whispers of prophecy are to be believed, its final revelation is closer than we dare imagine. For centuries, the eye in the pyramid has been seen as a silent emblem, a mysterious figure gazing down from coins, seals, temples, and manuscripts. But there are some who argue that the symbol is not merely a metaphor, not merely a representation of power or enlightenment, but an active force in the world, a key that unlocks deeper truths. These theorists believe the eye is more than an ancient artistic design. It is a signal from something greater, perhaps even a technology or a code that continues to guide human history from behind the veil. And it is here, in the realm of hidden knowledge and secret transmissions, that the eye's most radical interpretations take shape. One of the most provocative ideas is that the eye in the pyramid is not of human origin at all, but a symbol passed down by beings from beyond our world. Ancient astronaut theories suggest that visitors from the stars imparted sacred geometry and cosmic knowledge to early civilizations, embedding their wisdom into structures like the pyramids of Giza, Teotihuacan, and Mesoamerica. The eye, in this view, is not a religious icon, but a memory of contact, an emblem representing both sight and insight, the watching presence of a civilization older and more advanced than our own. Those who support this theory point to the precision of ancient monuments, the inexplicable alignment of pyramids with celestial bodies, and the recurring motif of the single eye across cultures as evidence that humanity did not invent this symbol, but inherited it. If true, then the eye in the pyramid is not only a reflection of human power structures, but also a lingering reminder that we are being observed, perhaps even guided, by an intelligence far older than we realize. Other interpretations turn inward rather than outward. In the esoteric schools of mysticism, the eye has long been connected to the so-called third eye, the inner organ of perception that allows initiates to see beyond the physical world into realms of higher consciousness. The pyramid, pointing upward toward the heavens, becomes a metaphor for spiritual ascent, with the eye at its peak symbolizing the final stage of illumination. In this sense, the eye in the pyramid is not only an emblem of external control, but also of internal awakening. It reminds humanity that true vision is not with the two eyes that see the material world, but with the single eye that perceives truth beyond illusion. To mystics, the eye is a challenge. To open what has long been closed, to look not at the world, but through it, until the hidden architecture of reality reveals itself. And yet, there is a darker side to this awakening. Many esoteric traditions warn that the same eye which grants vision can also deceive. Not all illumination is divine. Some is false light, a counterfeit revelation that leads seekers astray. This duality gives the eye and the pyramid its enduring power, for it can represent both salvation and control, truth and manipulation. A seeker gazing into the eye might be granted enlightenment or ensnared in illusion. The ambiguity is deliberate. The symbol resists certainty, forcing those who encounter it to wrestle with its meaning, and in that struggle, the symbol exerts its influence. In the modern age, this influence often takes the form of paranoia. The eye has become synonymous with conspiracy, the emblem of a hidden elite that manipulates governments, banks, and media. To some, it is the mark of the Illuminati, the secret brotherhood allegedly descended from Bavarian lodges and esoteric orders, working in silence to prepare the world for their rule. The unfinished pyramid on the dollar bill is interpreted not as patriotic symbolism, but as a declaration that their great project remains incomplete, that the true order, the final capstone, has yet to be put in place. The eye hovering above is not divine providence, but the watching gaze of those who already hold dominion, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. And yet, even within these conspiratorial frameworks, there is disagreement. Some see the eye as a mark of totalitarianism, the sign that humanity is being herded toward a single global system of control. Others interpret it as the symbol of a necessary transformation, an indication that the chaos of human history is being directed toward a higher unity, however unsettling that may seem. It is both tyranny and salvation, and depending on where one stands, it is either to be feared or embraced. In certain occult writings, the eye in the pyramid is even described as a kind of portal, a doorway between dimensions. Just as the apex of the pyramid represents the point of convergence, the eye is thought to be the threshold where human perception intersects with divine or cosmic intelligence. Rituals designed by secret societies often use this symbolism, invoking the eye as a channel through which higher forces might flow. Whether those forces are angelic, demonic, or extraterrestrial depends on who tells the story. But in each case, the eye is never passive. It is active, a gateway of power that transcends its own geometry. Consider also the psychology of the symbol. An eye, wherever it appears, suggests surveillance, attention, and judgment. To be looked at is to be made aware of one's own vulnerability. The eye in the pyramid functions in precisely this way. It makes humanity feel observed, accountable, and perhaps even small before a vast, unseen intelligence. For some, this inspires reverence, a sense that a higher order watches over us. For others, it inspires dread, the fear that freedom is an illusion under the constant gaze of an invisible master. In either case, the psychological effect is profound. The eye changes how we feel about ourselves, about power, about existence itself. And so the symbol endures because it is never fixed. It shifts meaning depending on the age, the culture, the viewer. In ancient Egypt, it was the Eye of Horus, protector and healer. In medieval Europe, it was divine providence. In Enlightenment America, it was the guiding light of a new nation. In modern conspiracy lore, it is the mark of hidden rulers. And in mystical circles, it is the third eye of awakening. Each interpretation contradicts the others, and yet all are true in their own way, because the power of a symbol lies not in its certainty, but in its capacity to contain contradictions. What makes the eye in the pyramid so powerful is precisely this ambiguity. It is a mirror reflecting the concerns of every era. When humanity fears oppression, the eye becomes tyranny. When humanity yearns for knowledge, the the eye becomes wisdom. When humanity trembles before the unknown, the eye becomes prophecy. It is all things, and because of this, it never dies. It lives on, not in the stone of pyramids or the ink of seals, but in the imagination of those who continue to see it. As we stand on the threshold of the modern age, with technology reshaping our perception and surveillance growing ever more pervasive, the eye in the pyramid seems less like a distant relic and more like a prophecy fulfilled. We live under a digital gaze, our lives monitored, recorded, and analyzed by algorithms invisible yet omnipresent. The pyramid is now global, built not of stone but of networks and data, its apex hidden far above in the hands of those who design the systems we use every day. And above it all, the eye still hovers, timeless and unblinking, reminding us that we have always been watched by gods, by rulers, by each other, and perhaps by something beyond. The eye in the pyramid is therefore not just a symbol from the past. It is alive in the present, and it may yet shape the future. Whether it is a force of liberation or control, of prophecy or deception, remains uncertain. What is certain is that the symbol continues to follow humanity across the centuries, adapting, shifting, and haunting, as though it were determined never to let us go. If the eye in the pyramid has survived across ages, whispered through secret lodges, carved into monuments, and printed onto the very currency of nations, then perhaps the most pressing question is not what it meant to the ancients, or to the Freemasons, or to the prophets of old, but what it means for us now, in this very moment. We are no longer in the desert sands of Egypt, nor in the candlelit halls of Enlightenment Europe. We live in an age where the pyramid has become invisible, and the eye has grown sharper than ever. To explore its significance today is to walk a tightrope between history and myth, between fact and suspicion, between what is seen and what is deliberately kept hidden. In the world we inhabit, power is rarely displayed openly. Politicians, corporate leaders, and institutions operate through symbols and signals, subtle cues that shape perception far more effectively than brute force. The eye in the pyramid is one of these cues. When it stares back at us from the dollar bill, from architecture, from music videos or film posters, we might be tempted to dismiss it as coincidence or design. Yet, the sheer frequency with which it appears suggests something deeper, something intentional. Symbols are chosen for a reason, and when the same symbol emerges again and again across time and space, we must ask whether it is pointing us toward a hidden continuity, a lineage of influence that transcends centuries. For some, the answer is clear. The eye is the banner of the elite, the insignia of a shadow order that has directed history's course from behind the curtain. They argue that wars, revolutions, financial crashes, and even cultural movements are not random but orchestrated, their outcomes shaped by hands unseen. The pyramid is their structure, the hierarchy of power in which the many support the few, and the eye is their vantage point, the perspective from which they survey humanity. To these theorists, the eye is not a passive reminder of divine providence. It is the brand of ownership, the silent mark of those who already believe the world belongs to them. Others, however, reject this view and see in the eye something more abstract but no less potent. The inevitability of human systems gravitating toward hierarchy and surveillance. Whether by conspiracy or by natural design, societies tend to create pyramids of power. At the base are the masses, working, laboring, unaware. Rising upward are the layers of authority, each one narrower, until at the apex sit the few who govern, whether kings, priests, presidents, or executives. The eye, then, is less a secret plot and more a universal truth, the symbol of how human civilization always arranges itself, no matter the era or ideology. And yet, whether conspiracy or inevitability, the effect is the same. The eye watches and we are watched. Today, that watchfulness has taken on a technological dimension that makes the ancient symbol feel eerily prophetic. Our data, our movements, our preferences, even our thoughts are monitored, recorded, and analyzed. The all-seeing eye has migrated from parchment and stone into silicon and code. Satellites orbit above us, cameras line our streets, algorithms study our desires, and artificial intelligence interprets our very words and images. The eye is no longer hovering above a pyramid in some abstract allegory. It is inside our phones, our networks, our daily lives. The eye is here, and its gaze is unrelenting. Still, one must ask, to what end? Is this watchfulness a safeguard, as governments claim, a protection against chaos and disorder? Or is it, as critics argue, a slow tightening of control, a preparation for a future in which freedom is little more than an illusion? The symbol offers no answer, only the unsettling reminder that observation itself alters behavior. When you know you're being watched, you act differently. The eye does not need to intervene directly. Its power lies in its very presence. Like the myth of the panopticon, the prison where a single guard can observe countless inmates from a central tower, the eye in the pyramid works because it makes us feel watched, and in that feeling, we discipline ourselves. But there is another interpretation, more mystical, and perhaps more hopeful. In the great tradition of esoteric thought, the eye is not merely surveillance. It is illumination. To open the eye is to awaken, to transcend the illusions of the material world and perceive truth directly. The pyramid is the climb, the arduous ascent of spiritual practice, and the eye is the reward, the final vision granted to those who endure the journey. In this reading, the eye in the pyramid is not a threat, but a promise, a reminder that enlightenment is possible, that a higher perspective can be attained. This duality, oppression or liberation, control or awakening, has always haunted the symbol, and perhaps this is the secret of its endurance. It means both simultaneously. It is precisely this ambiguity that allows the eye in the pyramid to adapt to every age. In times of stability, it can be seen as divine guidance, a benevolent watchfulness. In times of fear, it becomes the mark of tyranny, the emblem of hidden overlords. In times of curiosity, it is a puzzle to be solved, a key to forgotten wisdom. The eye never forces a single interpretation. Instead, it reflects the concerns of those who gaze upon it, acting as both mirror and lens. And so, as we approach the climax of this story, we must recognize that the eye's meaning is not confined to the past, nor even to the present moment. It is a living prophecy, a symbol of what is still to come. Its presence on the dollar bill, on architecture and popular culture, is a signal not of what has been completed, but of what remains unfinished. The pyramid is not capped. The eye hovers still above it. The project, whatever it may be, is ongoing. The final revelation, the moment when the capstone descends and the eye takes its place, lies ahead of us. The question is whether we will recognize it when it comes. Will the eye descend as enlightenment, a sudden awakening of global consciousness that lifts humanity into a higher state of being? Or will it descend as domination, the locking of the final stone into place, sealing the pyramid and binding the world within its structure of control? That is the tension that makes the eye so haunting. It holds within it both the light of salvation and the shadow of tyranny. Perhaps, in the end, the eye in the pyramid is not an external force at all, but a reflection of humanity's own dual nature. We are the pyramid, layered, hierarchical, struggling toward a higher vision. And we're the eye, searching, perceiving, striving to understand. The symbol endures not because it belongs to a secret cabal, but because it belongs to us. It is our collective archetype, the eternal image of our yearning and our fear. To some, this realization is liberating. The eye is within us, and its light can be awakened. To others, it is terrifying. The eye is within us, and so too is the potential for control, domination, and illusion. In this way, the eye in the pyramid remains the perfect symbol for the human condition. It embodies our highest hopes and our darkest suspicions. It is at once a relic and a prophecy, a warning, and a promise. And as the world marches deeper into an uncertain future, with technology blurring the line between freedom and control, with secrets still buried in the sands of history, with prophecies yet to be fulfilled, the eye continues to stare, unblinking. Whether it stares with love or with malice, with divine insight or with calculated intent, may never be known. What we can know is that its presence is not accidental, its endurance not coincidental. The eye in the pyramid is with us for a reason. The mystery is not yet complete. The capstone has not yet fallen. The final chapter has not yet been written. And perhaps, when it finally is, when the eye takes its place upon the pyramid, we will see not only the symbol's meaning, but our own. The story of the eye in the pyramid does not end with history, nor with conspiracy, nor even with prophecy. It lingers, like a whisper in the corridors of time, waiting for those who dare to notice it. Symbols do not survive for thousands of years by chance. They endure because they contain a truth so profound, so universal, that no empire, no religion, no government can fully claim it. And so, as the ancient eye continues to watch from its silent throne above the unfinished pyramid, we are left to wonder whether it is guiding us, warning us, or simply reflecting the destiny we have always carried within ourselves. Think of it. A civilization builds monuments in stone, aligning them with the stars. Priests whisper of an eye that sees all, connecting the world of men with the world of gods. Centuries later, philosophers, alchemists, and secret societies take up the symbol, encoding it into rituals and lodges, whispering of illumination, of hidden knowledge that must remain veiled until humanity is ready. Then, in modern times, it appears again, this time not in temples or mystery schools, but on the very money we exchange, on the architecture of our capitals, and in the entertainment we consume. Each age reshapes the eye, yet never discards it. Why? The most unsettling possibility is that the eye is not just a symbol, but a program. A seed planted in human consciousness long ago, designed to awaken at certain intervals, to remind us of a path we are still walking. Perhaps it is not coincidence that the eye is always associated with hierarchy, surveillance, and enlightenment. It may be that the eye represents a cycle of human development itself, a constant oscillation between freedom and control, awakening and suppression, order and chaos. Like the unfinished pyramid, humanity itself is incomplete. The eye, then, is the promise of completion or the threat of it. But if the eye is a program, then who, or what, wrote it? Was it the priests of Heliopolis, carving their solar theology into the architecture of Egypt? Was it the sages of Babylon, who studied the heavens and encoded cosmic order into their ziggurats? Was it the architects of secret brotherhoods in Europe, who carried forward fragments of forgotten wisdom through the Renaissance and Enlightenment? Or was it someone or something far older, beyond the reach of history, a civilization erased from memory but not from influence? Some researchers argue that the eye predates recorded history itself, pointing to symbols etched on cave walls, artifacts that hint at eyes and triangles long before the pyramids rose. If true, then the eye is not merely an Egyptian or Masonic emblem, but a universal archetype, a symbol buried deep in the human psyche. Carl Jung once suggested that such symbols are not inventions but discoveries, arising from the collective unconscious, repeating themselves across cultures because they are part of us. The eye in the pyramid may not belong to secret societies at all. It may belong to the human mind, surfacing again and again to remind us of our longing to transcend the ordinary. And yet, we cannot ignore the way the symbol has been wielded by power. Whether or not the eye belongs to us all, those who hold authority have always claimed it. Pharaohs placed it on their crowns, kings built palaces aligned with it, revolutionaries stamped it on their manifestos, governments carved it into stone. Each time, the eye becomes a tool, not just of inspiration, but of control. The powerful understand something the ordinary often forget. Symbols shape reality. When a symbol is repeated enough, It embeds itself into the subconscious, guiding thought without the need for words. The eye in the pyramid has been guiding us, perhaps shaping us, for far longer than we realize. But here is where the mystery grows darker. If the eye has been steering humanity, what is its final destination? Is the unfinished pyramid on the dollar bill a simple artistic flourish, or is it a declaration that the great project of humanity is still incomplete, waiting for its capstone, waiting for its eye to descend? And if so, what will that moment look like? A golden age of enlightenment or a final age of surveillance? Will the eye open within us all, lifting us into a higher vision of reality? Or will it open above us, the emblem of a system so total, so omniscient, that no thought, no action, no dream escapes its gaze? Perhaps the most chilling realization is that we may already be living in the age of the eye. Where are satellites, our drones, our global networks, if not an eye that sees all? What are our data centers, our algorithms, our digital records, if not the construction of a modern pyramid? Billions at the base, feeding information upward, toward the few at the apex who control it. That does not have to descend. It has already emerged, not from stone but from silicon. The ancient prophecy may not be waiting to be fulfilled. It may already be fulfilled, silently, invisibly, in the structure of the modern world. And yet, even as this realization chills us, there remains a glimmer of hope. The eye, after all, has never been only about control. In every tradition, in every whisper of esoteric teaching, the eye also symbolizes awakening. To open the eye is to see clearly, to pierce illusion, to step into knowledge that was once hidden. If the eye has been placed before us, perhaps it is not only to dominate us, but to challenge us. To ask, will you remain at the base of the pyramid, blind and burdened? Or will you climb, step by step, toward vision? The pyramid is difficult, the ascent grueling, but those who reach the summit discover that the eye has always been theirs. In this sense, the eye in the pyramid is less about an external conspiracy than an internal choice. Humanity itself must decide what role the symbol plays. We can allow it to be the mark of surveillance, the brand of hidden rulers tightening their grip. Or we can reclaim it as the symbol of awakening, the eternal reminder that we are capable of seeing beyond the veil. This choice is not made once, but continuously across generations. Each age faces its own version of the eye. Ours is digital, technological, invisible yet everywhere. How we respond to it will shape not only our own lives, but the legacy we leave for those who come after. So the story remains unfinished, like the pyramid itself. The eye waits above, neither descending nor departing, a silent witness to human destiny. Perhaps it will always wait, hovering eternally as both warning and invitation. Or perhaps one day it will finally descend, completing the pyramid, sealing the design. When that day comes, whether as enlightenment or enslavement, we will know at last what the eye has meant all along. Until then, it watches. And as it watches, it asks a question, one that echoes across time, across temples and lodges, across nations and ages. What do you see when you look back into the eye? For in the end, the eye in the pyramid may not be watching us at all. It may be waiting for us to finally watch ourselves.